Hello and good evening. This is Dice and Ice, and we're wrapping up our final game or our final session of Shadows over Driftchapel. We left off with the players climbing down into a dank cavern at some odd, unimaginable angle from a strange doorway that appeared in the chapel, the profane chapel in Driftchapel. That's a lot of words of chapel in a sentence. In this cave, it is dark. Water laps at your ankles. It glows a sickly green as from the strange fungi that drip from the ceiling. In the distance, you saw a strange figurine standing atop some kind of stone pedestal down a tunnel. There is no other way to move beyond up again, where you see the door that you had climbed through from the chapel now is closed behind you, as it makes that loud thud noise as it slams shut of its own accord. Slade's dead, crumpled body lies there in front of you. His blood mixes with the dark water of the Trawler's Bay that this cave is near. You hear the thundering rhythm of tidal waves smashing against rocks, but it echoes and distorts. And in between these rhythmic, thunderous crashes, you can hear the faintest calls of whispers, words that you cannot make out, but nonetheless. Mateo, you stand there, stalwart as always, with your D10 madness die, or whatever, how large it happens to be still in this entire game. What do you do, as well as what do the others do, as you're standing in this tidal pool, in this cavern?
Mateo looks down the hall at the figurine on the pedestal, and he looks to the two companions he had left, and he says, "We have lost someone that would have been of great help to us, but we must continue on for what he would have become. He would have saved us all and laid his life down for us if his mind wasn't manipulated by these horrors. And I expect both of you to be willing to fight alongside me when it comes to that." And Mateo is going to keep going on for about 10 more minutes, because I don't think you want me to talk for that long, to do Inspiring Leader. Everybody's going to be getting 7 temporary hit points.
All right. I can deal with that. I think Arlo will stand there and listen, but we'll spend most of the time just staring down at Slade, or what's left of him.
Meryl will kind of mill about a little bit, maybe like poking around in the water a bit, still mostly paying attention.
And so the echoings continue. It's almost as if it's some kind of strange, unnatural heartbeat as the waves crash in and shallow out and then crash again. It is a dark and stormy night, it feels. As you're standing here, listening to the speech of Matteo, over the corners of your eyes, you can't help but notice the shadows moving in the periphery of your eyes. Though when you look straight on, there is nothing. This always seems to be the case here in Driftchapel.
Seems to me we only have one way to go. Shall we move along?
Yes. Let us continue on with bravery and vigor.
So this tunnel stretches on for another 100 feet or so. When you come across the chamber, it has an altar at its center, a small, dark figurine on top of it. This chamber is large. The tunnel opens up to form this chamber, though the walls still are natural. The stone itself is black and almost mirrored, as if covered by some strange ink. Here, the whispers grow stronger and louder. They're hard to separate even from your own internal voices in your head. You can see that the fungi glow, almost forming a great spotlight pillar over this figurine atop this altar. The tunnel, however, continues on past this chamber, continuing into further darkness.
Lean in real close and take a good look at the figurine.
It looks to be made of some kind of coral, how it's shaped. It's lumpy, and you can see that it has strange carvings on it, motifs of eyeballs, of tentacles, of waves. And you can see that one of its eyes looks at you and seems to be staring directly into you, Arlo. Yes, I am yours. Take me to Quatu. Take me.
I am already spoken for. I'd like to bring my sword down on the figurine.
And it breaks, it shatters. It was made of some kind of fragile, almost like conch shell material. It just shatters into little fragments, very brittle, and these dark black pieces on the inside. They look like, yeah, they have that coral on the outside, and they're like a kind of a really glossy black on the inside. It seems to be it seems to be very hollow, and just crashes everywhere.
I believe we may have to dispatch this Kuwatu.
You know, that statue might have been worth some money.
The ambient whispers grow louder.
Yes, but I have a feeling that whoever you sold it to wouldn't have lasted much longer after the sale was done.
You think any of us are going to last much longer these days? Lawman.
I, in particular, no, but you both still have at least 40 years in you.
Meryl will just laugh.
If you live and die natural deaths.
I don't think we have that luxury these days.
You just have to know how to go about it. And Matteo would peer down the next hallway.
As you peer down the hallway, you notice that there are, seems to be what water is now running down the walls of this chamber, as the whispers in the ambience have grown louder and louder. And in the water flowing down the walls, you swear you can see tiny little squid, perhaps no bigger than your thumb, swimming in swarms, collecting in a great basin that is the tide pool at your feet. Down this tunnel, it seems to almost stretch and waver as your vision is distorted, as if you have vertigo or some other kind of dizziness. For a moment, you feel like you're upside down, as you feel your clothing tug on you, pulling you. And then you're standing right up, normal again. And the vertigo has stopped.
Best to get this over with. Continue forward.
Arlo, you seem to be relatively unaffected by the madness in the town. Yours seems to be much more natural. Would you care to take the lead in this particular passage?
So be it. And Arlo will just start confidently strolling down the next passage.
So Meryl, you are the last to progress down this hallway, correct?
Yep, I'll fall in right in behind him.
So you notice, Meryl, the hairs on your neck stand on end as you feel some breeze catch your skin. You get the sense that something is breathing on you.
I'm gonna whip around and throw a punch real fast, and if there's anything there.
What you see behind you is as if you're in the great gullet of some kind of giant fish. You see the walls of this cavern closing in as if a giant throat, constricting and moving, and the walls seem to be pulsating flesh. You see these tiny squid forming a shape, floating at the center of this giant cave throat. It forms the twisted shape of that priest. Not the priest before he transformed, but after. And you can only see its true shape, or all of the entirety of its form, through the reflections in the glossy black walls. That is this cave throat, and it advances towards you. You can see its great hooked fingers stretching out. One great hooked finger comes within inches of your clothes.
Meryl's gonna turn and run and just start yelling. And just like bloody murder. Oh God, help! It's down here! And just turn and run after him.
And as you turn and run, you find the ground thick with sludge instead of thin with water. The ground is slick as well. I need you, please, to make an acrobatics check.
That would be a 7.
You get stuck, and your momentum carries you forward, and you fall prone. And you're going to be taking 4 points of acid damage as you realize the sludge at your feet is not water, it's not seawater, it's stomach acid. Nasty digestive bile. as you feel your skin burn. And as you scream, I'd like everyone please to roll initiative. Though this is not a combat, it's going to be essentially more of a chase scene where you guys are fleeing from this thing right behind you. Oh, perfect. So, after Meryl, it is now Mateo. Meryl is tripped, screaming bloody murder right behind you. What do you do?
Mateo turns around to look at what's going on. He sees that Meryl has tripped and fallen and is being burned by the liquid at his feet. And Mateo's going to go up to Meryl, and he's going to grab him by the wrist and pull him up as quick as he can. He's going to keep holding on to Meryl's wrist, and he's going to say, "We can't afford to lose another one. We're almost through the night." And he's just going to try and get them through as best he can, with the priority going to Meryl if another check were to happen.
All right, so I can say that you can use your turn to help Meryl onto his feet instead of being prone.
Okay.
And then it goes to Arlo.
So this is just like the gullet of a creature. There's not actually like a physical creature chasing us.
You are in. It looks to be inside a gullet of a creature, yes, but there's also some strange spectral form made by a giant school and swarm of tiny thumb-sized squid that shimmer and make us kind of a shadowy or spectral shape, but you can barely even make out, with long tendrily arms ending with hooked bladed fingers, kind of scratching and clawing its way. You catch its appearance more through the reflection in the glossy surface of the walls rather than even looking at it directly. It seems to be advancing and pursuing you guys through this tunnel.
I think I'm going to, if possible, I'm going to toss off an Eldritch Blast. I'm going to grab at the darkness around me and whip a blast at it. Mostly because my Eldritch Blast will knock it backwards should it connect. And once I do that, I'm going to turn and run.
All right, yeah, so you can kind of knock it back and you cause it to kind of just falter for a mere moment, buying you another few milliseconds to advance further. We don't need to do any attack rolls or damage for this because it's more of an environmental thing than a creature. All of a sudden, where you stand, you feel that same disorienting vertigo that Mateo felt moments ago. Instead of feeling like you're standing straight up like a normal person would, you feel the weight of gravity pulling you on your back, pulling you backwards, as you realize, as your feet begin to shift and slip, that this tunnel now is a great vertical shaft stretching upwards instead of horizontally. And everyone, please make a dexterity saving throw or an athletics check to keep your footing.
Athletics, you said?
Either dexterity save or athletics, yeah.
Oh, okay. 14.
11 from Mateo.
21 from Meryl.
So the only one who does not keep their footing is Mateo. As you get doubled back or doubled down on this vertigo again, this time it's much heftier, and you slip and you start to tumble backwards. Though the tumbling backward doesn't seem quite right with actually falling down a shaft, as you still lie prone about maybe 5 feet back as you begin to get enveloped with this acid further. So you're not actually falling directly down a hole. It just feels like you are, if that makes any sense. You can take 5 points of acid damage. Meryl, what do you do?
And as Mateo is falling, he's just gonna he thinks he's falling down a shaft, so he's just gonna try his best to throw Meryl forward as he goes down.
Yeah. So Meryl, you're clinging now as if like you're hanging from some sheer cliff surface. You can feel like the water running down your fingertips, though it barely burns at this point because of all the adrenaline. Movement here will take athletics check just to climb up this rocky surface.
All right. So basically, it's like I'm climbing up a cliff face that's wet and slippery. Okay. If I glance back, what does Mateo look like?
Mateo looks like he's just somehow glued to the wall upside down with his feet up in the air behind you. And you can even see the great shadowy claws start to go to envelop him from this strange creature that's advancing.
Yeah. Meryl will start to climb up and then get like maybe 2 or 3 footholds up and just go, ugh. And he's going to reach into his pack, pull out his rope, and kind of unfurl it and start throwing it down to Mateo and try to start pulling him up. Give him something to hold on to.
All right, sweet. So Mateo, on your turn, you'll have advantage on athletics to climb up this sheer surface. And so how much are you trying to progress upwards the wall much, Meryl? Or would you say only like a...
I'll say I'll try and progress up, and then when Mateo tries to start climbing up, I'm going to try and brace so he has something solid to hold on to.
All right, cool. Give me that athletics check then.
That's a 15.
That's good enough to keep going.
Yep, 15.
All right, Mateo. The rope has been dangled to you. You feel your head start to spin as you cannot tell which direction is up. You're planted on your back, yet also dangling from your feet. Your skin burns, but a rope is there right in front of you.
Mateo reaches down into his chainmail and pulls out a small mouse, and he sets him on the rope first, and he says, "Go, I'll be up in a second." And after the mouse starts to make its way up, Mateo is also going to start to climb.
It's a very odd thing what this mouse does. It seems to walk up the rope as if that was the most natural thing to do, as if it were some kind of horizontal rope. But it's so strange because the rope is definitely vertical.
100%.
100%, yeah. Give me that athletics check with advantage because of the rope.
All right, so that's going to be a 19.
And you, with the help of Meryl bracing this rope, you were able to progress farther and farther up this sheer, slippery, acidic cliff face of a creature's gullet. Arlo, what do you do?
About how far ahead am I from the other two?
I'd probably say you're probably about 30 feet higher up than the other ones.
And do I see any kind of exit from this?
You see that you see a great pool of water now, just barely visible. It seems to be like a great, like almost like underground lake directly above you, which also makes your mind kind of melt a little bit, wondering why the water isn't falling down on you.
All right, I am going to spend my turn. I want to jam my shadow blade into the wall as hard as I can and tie off my rope and drop it down to the other two. And that's what I'm going to spend my whole turn doing. Bracing
All right.
this and dropping that down.
And now another rope dangles. So now both Meryl and Mateo will have advantage. Climbing higher and higher. And as all three of you wonder at this predicament you're in, as you try to fathom how a cavern could be a vertical shaft, you find yourselves losing the memory of who you are, what world you're in, or even what reality is itself. And I need all of you, please, to make any kind of intelligence check, like history, religion, nature, something that you can use to root yourself into reality, some kind of knowledge check.
Mateo is going to reach up from the bottom of his chainmail up towards where his scars are, and he's going to close his eyes, and he's going to try to remember the night that his parents turned. That is a 17.
That's a pass.
Arlo, he's already lost himself to the globe. So that's represented real well with the 4 I rolled.
So you lose a bit of who you are as you forget what reality is, as you're lost to the great unknown. Please roll your madness dice for me.
Ooh, D6. That's a 2.
Which means it ticks down a size. And we go to the madness effects of 36. I believe a 2 ticks it down. Yep. So please roll for me a D10 as your D6 turns into a D4.
1.
And as your mind slips from reality, you see yourself climbing, or I guess fixed, trying to embed that sword, and you're seeing yourself from some distant vantage, as if you're outside this tunnel, outside Driftchapel, outside this cosmos itself, looking in on this microscopic, tiny little speck of dust that is Arlo. And you lose the sense of who you are. Your limbs definitely don't belong to you. And in this moment, you see that Arlo almost passes unconscious, slipping from his footing, as he kind of tumbles backwards a bit. He essentially just falls prone after losing his bit of what do you call it? Groundedness. And then as a moment you come back, you're lying on your back in the same strange way that Mateo was earlier, where you're both dangling by your feet and also laying on your back. But thankfully, you have that rope next to you that you probably even used instinctually to catch yourself. So you probably maybe lost about 10 feet of ground at this. And lastly, Meryl, what did you roll in your knowledge check to remember yourself?
Meryl's gonna sit there and kind of sway for a minute and almost look lost, and then he's gonna reach up and grab the wolf's medallion that he wears, and just you're gonna see him get really angry and say, "Not like this, you son of a," and he's gonna get an 18 with a -1.
This you keep the knowledge of who you are and what reality is in mind, and this causes you to stay rooted in reality instead of seeing yourself from some strange third-person perspective like Arlo did. And that brings us back up to you, Meryl, as you see Arlo kind of just almost just become catatonic for a mere moment, losing his footing and slipping back, tumbling down about 5 or 10 feet before catching himself instinctually on the rope again. You have this rope as well dangling from Arlo's spectral shadow blade. about 20 or so, 30 feet above you to help you travel.
All right. Meryl will start to climb up, and he's still going to be holding the rope that he's got wrapped around himself to steady Mateo. And he's going to climb up till he can get to that other rope and just kind of hold onto both so he can make one long rope with himself.
All right, give me that athletics with advantage, please.
23.
And you do so with aplomb as you climb your way up. Your resolve from that moment of remembering how you will not die, keeping you grounded in reality, helping you with that vigor as you make your way up this cliff. As you come to the hilt of this shadow sword in the wall with the rope bound to it. And you're able to even unhook it probably this turn, the rope, if you wish. Or
No, I'll leave it.
Unhook. Yeah, you can do whatever you need to the ropes this turn if you'd like.
Basically, all I want to do is kind of wrap one around my wrist and wrap the other one around my wrist and just kind of sit there and hold both as kind of an anchor.
And you're absolutely able to do so. And Mateo, what do you do?
Arlo collapsed and is on the wall with us now, right?
Yeah, he just lost a few feet of footing.
Okay.
Yes.
Is he within reach of Mateo?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Okay. Mateo's going to reach over, putting his arm around Arlo's back and one hand beneath the arm on the far side of Arlo. And he is going to just try and help Arlo regain those few feet.
Awesome, yeah. So you help him from the prone position. Help him get, affixed back onto the rope, helping him get his bearing again. Arlo, after this weird relapse in your own ability to fathom the universe, Mateo helps you regain your handing and your footing on the rope on this sheer slippery wall. The shadowy being still pursues from beneath. What do you do?
Arlo's gonna look around at the other two, look up at the water, weird water sitting there. Just leave the sword when you're done, and Shadow's going to envelope him, and he's going to disappear into the shadow and reappear 30 feet up the shaft using Misty Step, and then use his action to grab one and keep climbing.
And as you Misty Step, you feel the moisture of water at your feet. As you're standing probably waist deep now in the pool of water, it's actually much closer, it seems, than it looked like. As you're now standing in the water of this pool, you are upright and you see behind you your companions, Meryl and Mateo, crawling on the ground, clinging onto this rope, just pulling themselves across the ground. Their bellies are scraping against the stone. They're even like heaving and screaming as there's nothing pursuing them from behind. In fact, this cave that you're in is a ordinary, I say with quotation marks, cave. One that is definitely not the gullet of some strange fish. In this water that is all around you, you can see a flickering of flame, or at least torchlight. You know it is some kind of flame because you can see these long shadows being cast on the far wall, maybe about 80 feet or so from you across this long, deep underground pool. The shadows are hard to describe and hard to figure out what they are, hard to discern, but you can tell that they're somewhat humanoid, or at least intelligent by the way that they move and stand. They probably number at least 4. Though with the flickering of the flame and how they move about, it's difficult to get a good count. And with that, we'll go to Meryl. As you are climbing with you got these ropes affixed to your hands that are climbing up and up and up. This great shadowy being is pursuing you from underneath. You can feel just it rake against your shin, drawing blood as you feel that wetness go down your leg. What do you do?
Keep screaming and keep climbing. Advantage still?
Yes.
Oh, it didn't help me much. Oh, actually, 14?
14 is good enough to gain
Okay.
more footing. And as you climb another 30 feet up, or I guess across or down, or whatever direction we're dealing with now, you can feel water lap against your fingertips as you're now at the edge of some tide pool, and you can see standing above you is Arlo. He's about maybe waist deep in water, though again, like standing, but how can he be standing when this thing's a vertical shaft? Like he's standing like this.
How are you doing that?
I believe it might be all in your mind. Just move
And
along.
Mateo, what do you do?
Mateo is going to climb up after the both of them, and he's just going to assume that Arlo did some magic stuff so that he could stand on the wall, because Mateo doesn't really know how arcane magic works.
So you have advantage on this climb, on this athletics check, because of the rope.
So that is 2 natural 20s.
Well, 1 is good enough. As you make your way up, and the same phenomenon happens to you, where you climb upwards into a vertical pool of water. As you feel your fingers wet now, that coldness of the water reaching your fingertips. And you see Arlo standing there, and Mateo, or sorry, not Mateo, and you see Meryl next to you. The rope has become slack. And as you peer into the water, you get a sudden reorientation of your body. And so do you too, Meryl, as you both feel the weight on your chest and on your legs, as you realize that you have been crawling on your bellies this whole way.
Are we out of initiative, or are we still going by
Yeah.
initiative?
We're now out of initiative now. You see the same sight of that across the pool, hidden behind some rocky outcroppings. You see a large shadow, a large kind of light coming from perhaps a fire, with shadows dancing on the wall of numerous figures, and you can hear words, whispers, and chanting, as well as the sounds of lapping water and the other strange echoings of an underground sea cave.
Meryl's going to whip around and look back down the... Well, he's going to stand up and just, like, again, he's splashing, flailing. He's going to stand up as quick as he can and turn to look behind him. What does he see down the tunnel?
Yeah, but behind you down the tunnel, you see a short amount of distance, and then that strange chamber where that altar and that idol once stood. and beyond that still is a chamber. It looks maybe like you've progressed a total of 15 feet on the ground.
He's just going to look really confused and turn to look at the others.
Mateo is just gonna glance behind him, and when he sees that it's like back to normal, he's just gonna scoop the mouse back up and put it back on his shoulder, and he's gonna say, "Well, I guess the place isn't quite done messing with our minds."
That's usually the way magic works. And I'll just reach down into the darkness of the water and pull my remanifest my sword and pull it out. I believe our quarry is up ahead.
Then ahead is where we shall go.
Well, I don't think we can get back out through the way we came, so I guess onward it is. I'm not going last this time.
And as you look around, you see that this tide pool seems to have some kind of shoreline to it across the one edge, the one that's to your left. And to your right, you see why it seems to be such a large tide pool. You don't see a cavern wall on the far right. Just open sky as the water stretches on forever. And above it, you see the faintest crashes of lightning and thunder, as this seems to be an open mouth exit to the Trawler's Bay, the sea of water right outside of Driftchapel. And you can see this coastline, this shore, though this whole place is, has this huge, I guess, canopy of rock, this like the cave ceiling, is as if it's been like hollowed out by endless tide incoming and outcomings. And this rocky coastline in this cave kind of hooks around this tide pool, and that's where those rocky outcropping, where the dancing shadows and lights are hidden behind it, perhaps 50 feet away. You hear the whispers and the chants and the words all seem to rhythmically coincide. They aggravate each other. They cancel each other out, but also still amplify each other the same. As you hear the same word repeated over and over again, overlapped with itself, even sometimes itself backwards. Quatu. Quatu. You hear. Repeating.
Do we see anyone or anything saying this?
You do not see any person or anything saying it. The only thing you do see are the shadows of what you can hope to be people across this rocky way. It's like your line of sight is just obscured by a great stalagmite stretching from the ground, connecting with the ceiling. I guess it would be a pillar, I guess. Kind of a stalactite and a stalagmite kind of, merge together.
Merrill will unsling his blunderbuss and start to move forward, slowly and cautiously.
And as you make your way down this rocky coast, you can hear the crunching of seashells beneath your feet, as this entire coast is not made of rocks, as you thought it once was, but is a giant bed of innumerable seashells, each in various sizes, various patterns, and various shapes, and they crunch and break brittle beneath your footsteps. You're around this corner, and you can see there is a great brazier made of this dark black metal set into the ground. It's kind of, you can see the ground is sandy where they are, and you can see them. They count six in total as you see the sixth one as you peer a little bit further. They all stand in a circle around this brazier. Their forms are hooded and cloaked. You cannot see their arms nor faces nor legs, just the vague shapes of figures. This is where the voices seem to be coming from.
Did anyone else follow close to Meryl?
Mateo would have been following close.
I would have been following, but not too close. Maybe like 20 feet behind.
And if Mateo is able to see these figures, he'd lift up a hand and he'd say quietly, "Your minds are unvestable, but your bodies shall sleep here," as he casts the sleep spell.
He's casting sleep on the figures.
Yep.
All right, give me those d8s, please, and tell me what they add up to.
All right, let's see. So that's 10, 12, 16, 18. 18 total.
One by one, they drop. 5 of them crash into the ground, and the 6th one stands. Looking up from the strange position, this like bowing position, you realize his hands unfurl, and a wicked knife is protruded from beneath the cloth. The face is revealed as the cloak is drawn back, and you see that familiar face, although it is only familiar to Slade. That face of the man in that tavern in that first session, with those bulbous frog eyes and a sallow, gaunt face with a patchy beard and pockmarks all over their face. His face, my bad. A man you've learned to be Finch Turner. Our time has come, he shouts, and his voice echoes across, bouncing off the strange, irregular walls of this cave. The sea rises. He stabs into the corpse of one of these sleeping cultists.
Meryl opens fire.
And that's when we're going to roll initiative.
This many.
You get 5 turns? Wow.
It's a natural 1 for a 3.
Oh,
nice.
We're screwed.
So that was an 8 that you got there, right, Brendan?
Yep.
Okay, so as
So I'm the
is
best at being
fitting-
the worst.
as is fitting, the boss monster goes first. All right. And then it was Mateo with a 5, and then Arlo with a nat 1, you said?
Yeah.
Nice. And as Finch stabs this corpse, a similar wound appears on his own chest as it stains the front of his garb with blood. And then he lifts himself up his arms extended, the knife pointing up in the air. He grabs the knife with both hands, stabs himself right in the throat. You hear him, blood start to curdle and pool from his mouth. He cuts, cuts, and cuts, and cuts, splitting his body in half. He's gutting himself like a fish. And as he does so, his body opens. The skin flaps rip apart. And inside falls to the ground. First his lungs, and then his heart, and then his rib cage falls out next as well. And then his intestines and all of his entrails spill out one by one as he continues just to rip his own body open until he's nothing but a distended corpse that lays back on the ground. And his entrails are all sitting in a pile. And his entrails begin to bubble and boil as their flesh roils. And then, one by one, and each time one of these great appendages emerge, a huge splatter of blood sprays the sides of the cavern wall. Being birthed from the entrails of Finch is a great being with the only fathomable feature it has is a great, massive, maybe 5 feet wide, single vertically slitted eye that does not blink. And it has these innumerable appendages and other sorts of body parts forming out of his entrails, begins to climb out and hulk out. This is a huge sized creature. It's the top of its form scrapes against the wall and the ceiling of this underground sea cave. And as you look upon this great mass of Lovecraftian goodness, I need all of you please to roll your sanity dice.
Nine. Mateo just has not given a crap this entire time.
I failed on my D4.
You fail on your D4, all right?
So did
How
I.
about Mateo? You are the only one unaffected. So both of you, please, to roll that juicy D6. See what happens now as your mind utterly breaks at the sight of this thing.
5.
Okay. So Meryl, you gaze upon this creature. Your eyes are vacant, and you have a drooping smile. These are telltale signs of a shattered mind. You are permanently unconscious and unable to be stirred, yet you just stand there in awe.
I'm hoping higher numbers are good because I rolled a 10.
A 10? It's supposed to be a D6.
Oh, I thought you said a D10.
No. This is the final mind break is a D6.
4.
A 4. You cannot remember who you are. All language and personality leaves you, and you are left a husk of your former self. You reduce your charisma score to 4, like to the number 4, as you just become unable to recognize who you are and who others are.
Wow,
Otherwise, you can still do actions and do things just by having a 4 in your charisma score.
yeah, that shouldn't affect a warlock at all.
No, not at all.
It's been fun, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, and I need both of you also to please to roll a d20.
And Mateo is still as sane as when we started. Literally, everyone else in the party is so insane that their characters are broken.
6 on the D20.
4.
Okay, so This is super fitting, Jesse. As your mind shatters and breaks, and you lose that sense of personality, the only thing that you do have to fixate on is this universal concept that you completely understand. This cosmic concept of unhands, and you must remove them at the wrists.
All right.
And this is also fitting for Meryl, as you're just standing there in awe. As you see this creature, you see this lexicon appear on its flesh, as you understand the one true language of the cosmos. This is a new, beautifully complex language, and you refuse to speak anything else but this language, as essentially you become this gibbering, in awe person speaking in tongues, standing there doing nothing but drooling and mumbling. As you're just witnessing this alien language that is perfect and beautiful in every way. It captures every emotion that could be possible, every feeling, every single desire a person could have is captured in this language. And this angers you that your companions don't speak it, yet you cannot do anything about it because you're just standing there in awe, just mesmerized by its poetry. And that was Finch's turn. Meryl, you are catatonic. Would you like to narrate your turn, or do you want me to skip you? It's up to you.
I'm probably gonna stand there staring at it, gibbering. The blunderbuss is gonna hang slack in my one hand. I'll still be holding it, but just in one hand.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna turn and look at Mateo and just start rabbling and babbling at him, staring directly at him and not blinking.
Mateo, what do you do as you see the mind of your companion shattered?
Looking back and forth between my companions and this creature, Mateo is going to run right up next to Meryl, and he's going to try and shoot the creature with his own blunderbuss.
Okay. Because I imagine Meryl cannot do anything to resist this, this will be just a straight old attack with the a blunderbuss, using your bonuses there, Mateo.
Gotcha. It's a grand total of 6 to hit.
So I guess Meryl does resist, because you're not speaking the right language, and this is just the most perverse thing you could do, is speak a language that isn't the truth. The blunderbuss, you can barely wrest it from his hands or even grab it, and shooting it itself is an ordeal worse than fathoming what the fate of your companions are. That was your movement and your action. Do you have any kind of bonus action you want to do?
Mateo's going to call out to them, I know you two are better than this. You can overcome the madness.
Arlo,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Well, considering the recent developments, Arlo is going to, like you'd seen him do before, start breathing darkness out into his hands. But instead of throwing it this time, he just keeps breathing more and more as the shadows dance around his fingers and eventually explode in his own hands, destroying his hands and probably knocking him back 10 feet.
Yeah, so roll Eldritch Blast damage against yourself. As you lose your hands at the wrists.
So, funny enough, because my charisma is so low now, my Eldritch Blast damage is actually negative.
So it's always a minimum of 1 damage.
I rolled a 1, so
That's awesome. Yeah.
But
Your hands are removed at the wrists as you just obliterate them with this fell magic, as the shadows just eat them and devour them. You're staggered back, but you don't care, as instead of what other people would see would be these spouting, arteries spraying into the cave, you see just these glorious fountains of just this blackness that form these great clouds at your wrist stumps, and you feel like you have ascended from your mortal shell now. You've shed these hands that bound you to this plane, and now you are as a god, as the Quatu is a god in front of you. That brings us.
Arlo will just laugh,
ahead.
laugh maniacally.
It is now Finch's turn, or should I say, the avatar of Quatu. It advances this lumbering hulk of flesh. It is slow, you see, Mateo, as it strikes at you whoosh, with a huge lashing tentacle. And it's going to drop the dice on the floor. It's going to get a 20 to hit.
Yeah.
Okay. As it strikes you with this tentacle, it's going to do 8 points of damage to you, as well as wrap around you, and you need to make me an athletics check, please, to resist being grappled.
That's a 7.
So it got a 24. As you are now, as this tentacle coils around your waist, and it begins to hoist you off the ground. You feel your feet leave the ground, and as its second attack, it's going to hurl you across the cave, whoosh, tossing you into one of the cave walls. Make a dexterity save, please.
That is a 19.
You are able to keep your footing and kind of roll and tuck and roll for this. You're going to be taking 3 points of bludgeoning damage as you kind of land somewhat harmlessly 30 feet away now, away from your allies on the other side of this cave. You can actually see these slumbering cultists now in a circle around the brazier, one of which is dead, so it's 4 slumbering and 1 dead. You landed in a heap in the sand, otherwise unaffected, but completely distanced from your allies. Meryl, you're...
Just for my head, is the brazier lit?
Yes, it is. It is. The fire is what's casting all this light in this area.
Okay.
And it's Meryl's turn to gawk in awe.
Yep. I imagine I just watch Mateo get flicked, and he just kind of turns and watches, and then turns to look back at the advancing thing and just starts talking to it and gibbering at it. Still standing there slack-jawed. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah. You speak these unfathomable words. Mateo, as you're thrown across the room, what do you do?
What color is the fire?
Fire is a normal red,
Okay.
like a regular. It has a size of about a bonfire, but it's looks to be the most normal thing going on in this tonight. A regular fire.
Does it look like there's anything like in the fire?
Yes, actually. If you look into the fire, you can see that it is kindled not with wood, not even driftwood, but the sizzling flesh of... And your stomach turns as you see this. You see an actual hand draped over the side of the brazier. It looks like corpses and bodies dismembered are being used to fuel this fire, as the flesh cooks and sizzles and fuels this great flame. Some of these appendages and arms and faces are not even those of humans, but of those strange fish monsters that you fought back in the Ordist's lab as well.
Mateo is going to grab the mouse on his shoulder that somehow stayed on him after he was flung, and he's going to softly toss it towards the exit, and he's going to tell it, "You head out. I'm not sure how much longer it'll take." And he'll stand back up and look at this avatar of Quatu. For clarification, Mateo shot his blunderbuss in the last turn. So he's going to run up to where he was, and he's going to pull the blunderbuss from Meryl. He's going to try and shoot it.
And so running back to where Meryl was would provoke an attack of opportunity from this avatar, as if it's like a there's here's where you were, this is where the avatar was, and it like threw you over here instead of like you had to run back here to get to it. It would be an attack of opportunity as you run by. If you want to accept that, then it'll.
Mateo is going to pull out his battle axe, and his shield is probably on his arm. He just, a 20's a 20. So he's going to run up to the creature, and he's going to try and just hack away at the tentacle that flung him.
All right, give me that attack roll, please.
It almost stopped on a good number. This is only slightly better than the last attack, a 9.
A 9 was close, but not quite able to hit this creature. Your battle axe bounces off of its rubbery flesh, not even harming it.
Arlo,
do you do anything else?
Please. I cannot face this creature on my own. And it's evident that the events of the night have kind of messed up Mateo, like physically, even if they haven't seemed to touch him mentally.
Arlo, now that you've ascended to Godhead, shedding behind your hands, what do you do?
So, exactly as you said, Arlo always knew he would rule over this city. He would convert the people to his way. He looks right at the avatar striding forward, what he thinks to be shadow pouring all over him, and shadow pouring from his eyes. Just looks right into the creature. This is my city. Be gone, and I will cast Cause Fear because there are no somatic components.
All right, so that's a wisdom save?
Wisdom save.
All right. Do I want to know what your spell save DC is right now?
Oh God, wait. 10?
It got a 22.
I'm not exactly sane right now, so I think it worked.
The only thing that happens is that you see the creature in front of you. Its many tentacles raise up into the air, and in a brief moment you see them silhouetted by the fire. The great creature, you can see a shorter tentacle, a longer one, a longer one, a longer one, and a longer one. It is a giant hand with a great eye at its center with that vertical pupil. And it like...
I don't like hands.
Do you do anything besides this action?
I would actually just keep striding right towards it. As far in Arlo's state of mind, this thing fears him. This is a lesser god.
And as you're able to stride right up to it if you'd wish. It is within 30 feet.
Yep.
All right, you stride right up to it. It is now the avatar of Quatu's turn. As it notices that Meryl tried to strike it, and that Arlo tried to use his weak human magic against him, or against it. And one tentacle goes at each of you, whoosh, whoosh, striking each of you. So we're going to do Mateo first. This will be a 26 to hit.
Nah, I don't think that's gonna do it.
Doing 5 points of bludgeoning.
I.
And then Arlo is a nat 20.
Oh.
And Arlo is going to take 12. Oh, God. 26 points of bludgeoning damage.
I just need to see real quick if I require heads for something here.
I will say that you can still do your magic without your hands. In your let's throw that out the window. You can still do your magic without hands because of your weird unhand godliness.
Much, but a dexterity save is going to be required as the shadows. And Arlo takes a hit, and the shadows kind of lash back out with hellish rebuke.
Sweet. So it only got a 13, which I guess still passes your DC 10. So it takes half, right?
No, I don't think it takes. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, it does take half. 14, 20, 11. It's 22 total, so 11.
What kind of damage is this?
Fire, technically.
So as the shadow spews from you in this strike, it ignites on this creature's rubbery flesh, and Mateo sees it best. As this hellish rebuke strikes back, these huge streaks of flame crawl up, lighting up its flesh like a torch, burning it like a candle. It's ignited in a way that normal flesh shouldn't. And you rolled 22 halved to 11, but weakness doubles it to 22. So you do 22 points of damage. And do you survive this 26 points of damage?
I do.
Oh, that's surprising.
Well, we did have the temporary hit points from earlier.
That's right. So both of you, please, will need to make athletics checks to resist it grappling both of you.
Oh, that's better. 22.
Okay.
13.
So it passes against Arlo and fails against Mateo. As you're able to kind of batter away that shield, Arlo, you're grappled now in this tentacle that struck you critically. Probably even like it's now crushing your rib cages, and you feel them snap against you in your lungs, and it's crushing you, squeezing that life right out of you. Mateo, you just bash it back unhindered.
Out of curiosity, was Arlo within 5 feet of me?
No, you're more
Okay.
you're more like flanking this creature than being allied, or not allied,
Cool.
adjacent.
Just wanted to make sure I didn't just let him take a crit.
I mean, he did walk up eye to eye with an Eldrakar. He kind of deserved it.
And Meryl, do you have any new strings of poetry to speak of on occasion?
I do, and I will continue to recite them. However, I have something to ask you as DM. Could I get mad that no one else understands me?
I'd say that this is a truly infuriating thing.
Could I get, say, raging mad?
Absolutely, you could tap into that feralness. You can do anything, but I guess, well, yeah, you're technically unconscious, but witnessing everything around you. Can a barbarian rage while unconscious?
It says it ends early if you are knocked unconscious, so that's why I was asking.
Okay. You know what? For the hell of it, yes, you can rage. Though it'll be hard for you to do anything beneficial while raging.
Might be able to soak up an extra hit.
Yeah.
That's about all I'm hoping for.
Yeah, so I will allow that just for the halibut.
So yeah, I'll just start yelling even louder and just frothing at the mouth, speaking gibberish at my former allies and like pleading with the avatar to help.
Mateo, your gibbering idiot of an ally, is just drooling at his mouth, just mumbling into the wind, almost even drowned out by the clang of your shield and your armor and the screams and the yells of Arlo. You see just these fountains of blood erupting from Arlo's wrists, spraying the air, and he looks like he's pale. He's losing blood fast. You can see that he's choking and dying from the crushing of this tentacle. What do you do?
I am going to move around this creature to where Arlo is. And I'm going to put a hand on one of his stumps, I guess would be the correct term. And you guys would see light pouring from Mateo's fingers into Arlo's arm as he spends his last 15 points of lay on hands.
So is your movement in your action any kind of bonus action from you?
I
I don't think so.
The mouse scurries out of the cavern.
The poor mouse survives. Arlo, a being that has hands touches you and heals you 15 points. What do you do?
I will recoil from the light and take my other stump, which still has, in my mind, shadow pouring out of it, and turn around and fire an Eldritch Blast at Mateo.
All right, roll that attack roll, please.
Specifically aiming for his hand that touched me.
I'm within 5 feet, so
Disadvantage. Yeah.
What's disadvantage?
yeah.
Okay, so with my -4, does a 5 hit you?
No.
Yay, charisma.
Holy fuck, I fixed them. I fucking...
This avatar of Quatu lifts you up, Arlo, higher and higher into the air as it still has you grappled. And it's going to do the same thing that it did to Mateo earlier. It's going to fling you as you tumble through the air and you land on the far side of the brazier, across, far away from Mateo. As you land in a heap, can you make me a dexterity saving throw, please?
Yeah, so you're actually going to see as he gets lifted closer to the dark sky, you're actually going to see almost a moment of peace come over Arlo's face. Dex saving throw? 19.
Yeah. Oh, you be able to somehow catch your bearing with your stumpy hands. It's probably because your stumpy hands are better because, you know, your godliness and all that. So you can take 5 points of bludgeoning damage as you keep your bearing on the ground. And so you're about 30 feet away on the opposite side of where Mateo and you used to be. Flung. You see this burning brazier in front of you. You see the great hand creature just kind of waving there in front of you. And you see all those bodies lying on the ground, each of which has a pair of hands laying on the ground, sleeping. And Meryl, you recite another verse of your cosmic poetry.
I do.
It is a lament. It is an angry lament at how infuriating it is that these puny ants cannot fathom the greatness that is this language that you see sprawled in front of you. In fact, you can even see how the light catches from each lightning bolt that thunders outside in the bay, how it reflects off of each of these seashells. You see that it spells out even more great phrases and words on the shoreline. These words are everywhere. You see them even in the splashings and ripplings of the waves, in the mottling of this creature's scales and skin. It's everywhere, and it's beautiful. It's like
Meryl
seeing the
weeps.
Matrix.
Meryl begins to weep at the beauty of it all.
Mateo, your crazed companion has just been flung from you moments after you healed one of his hands. Not really not renewing the hand at all, but just like after you healed him. And you just see him kind of thrown across the room as this Lovecraftian horror continues to just rise in front of you. What do you do?
For just a moment, I'm distracted by Arlo getting tossed, but I steel myself, and Mateo's grip on his axe tightens as he screams at the creature, "You will not have this town this night," and he takes another swing at it, trying to chop off the tentacle that was holding Arlo.
Give me an attack roll, please.
Come on, double digits. That is a nat 1.
That will not hit, as you are. I feel like your hands are shaking, and your steadiness is lost in this battle. Is like your amygdala, that part of your brain which is responsible for fight or flight, is just throwing hormone after hormone at you, causing you to just be shaking, and just in the moment you're pulsating with adrenaline, and you can't quite make those tactful, steady maneuvers that you're used to. Like your training is almost flying away as you're just being debased into this just bestial, animalistic form where you barely can even strike with your battle axe anymore.
His instincts are telling him, run. You cannot beat this thing on your own in the state that you're in. But his sense of duty is telling him, no, I have to face this thing, or else what's going to happen to the people behind me?
So any kind of movement from you?
Just staying where I am.
All right. So you brace your shield for another onslaught. Arlo, you kind of come to your feet easy, and you see those five beautiful lying people. They are sullied by the presence of hands.
So, Mateo, when you say you got to worry about the people behind you, do you mean the unconscious people on the ground as well?
I mean everyone in the cave as well as everyone in the town that is still around.
So if you happen to glance back during that thought, you're going to see Arlo is kind of completely checked out now, staring at all the people, staring at their hands. See the shadows swirl around him as he tries to summon his sword but can't hold it. So he drops to his knees and stumps and starts biting at the wrist of some of the unconscious.
And you just, with this feral animosity, you rip through tendon and flesh as one of these cultists snaps awake screaming at the just this terror of you just like eating through one of their wrists, and you bite through it quick enough as you just you crunch the bone with your molars. And Mateo, you see one of the tentacles, it's one of its tips kind of snap off and lie dead and writhing, detached on the ground in front of you, as if when Arlo bit off the hand of the cultist, so too did one of the little ends of the tentacles break off. This cultist begins to like scream, and the blood pours from his open, gaping, wrist wound as he loses blood fast and falls unconscious from this sudden attack that you've done. These are essentially minions with one hit point or whatever. This is enough to kill him.
Even though that's enough to kill him, just for the creepy factor, as Arlo's biting through his wrist and the cultist starts to scream, Arlo takes one of his stumps with the shadow and goes, shh, and just point blank, just blast into the guy's face.
And you make his face concave with this shadow that just like blights his flesh. And that is Arlo's turn. The avatar of Quatu is now angered. I mean, if it could feel anger. And lashes out at you again, Arlo, with one mighty strike. It only got a 12 to hit.
Even without my shield, that will not hit.
All right. And so it lashes at you, but it misses you because its tentacle is not as long as it normally would be, as just this severed stump tries to strike you and misses. And Mateo, another one of the you actually, Mateo, you still have this huge eye centered on you with that huge slit. This eye is literally bigger than you are as it's staring at you, and you realize how puny of a being you are. I need you, please, to roll me your madness die, please.
Mateo is unshaken as he steels himself firmly on the ground, realizing that even in his madness, Arlo is making headway against the creature as he gets an 8 on his madness die.
Okay, so as you pass this madness die, so instead you're only going to be taking psychic damage. As you take 8 points of psychic damage, as this eye bores into your consciousness, but you stand there resolved, staring back. You have a minor headache at this,
And
unless this 8 damage kills you, in which case you have a more than just a minor headache.
it gets me down to 0. Doesn't kill me outright.
This creature stares at you, and as you stare back, the last thoughts you have are that of resolve, that of steel, and not failing, as everything goes black, as you fall unconscious at 0, crumpling into a pile at the base of this creature. All right, Meryl, what song do you have to recite? But eulogy.
It'll be a beautiful verse about the seashells and their infinite tessellation through the endless sea.
And this word even makes you have an epiphany as well, Meryl. As you speak these words, you realize at the genius of them, as you just unlock another, part of the cosmos that was hidden from you, as your infinity becomes a larger infinity. Mateo, please make me a death saving throw.
I got a nat 20 on it.
And so as you lie there, your head is numb. You feel your consciousness come in and out, but you just keep your bearing. You never actually fell unconscious. You were just dazed on the ground. You're gone. I imagine like your hand grips and tightens around that grip of your battle axe as you gain your resolve back. You get 1 hit point, and you get to complete your action as you were prone, but otherwise are in full faculty.
So Mateo gets up shakily. He holds his shield out in front of him, and he looks this thing right in the eye, and he says, "I'm a Dawnhammer. We don't go down easy." And he's going to take another swing straight at the eye.
All right, give me that attack roll.
God. 9. This
A
die
9.
is going back in the egg.
Your battle axe sinks into this pupil of this eye. You've landed square into the eye, but the pupil flexes like a muscle and traps your battle axe in the literal slit of the eye, and then expels it with like a little shower of strange bile and other weird mucousy fluids that sprays your face and sends the battle axe back to back into your hands again. Arlo, you've eaten through the hands of one of the men here, and there are still 4 more. What do you
Did
do?
I happen to see the tentacle fall off?
I would say it is definitely within the realm of possibility to see that, yes.
Well, I mean, I still have my presence of mind.
Yeah.
I want to get rid of the hands, but I want to get rid of the creature.
And this does both.
The brazier's right next to this, right?
Yes, yeah, you can feel the heat of this huge bonfire next to you.
I want to walk around the other side of it, put my stumps right on the glowing edge, and push the fire over onto the sleeping cultist.
All right, give me a strength check, please.
Not my strong suit. 11.
You can feel the weight of this thing, and thankfully, it was actually on a pretty unstable surface. It was only a DC 10, and you end up tipping the brazier and dumping out these corpses out of this bonfire, and the fire spreads, catching flame to the cultists' garments. And as they take their damage, they awake in screaming fear. And likewise, when they catch a fire, their hands as well. You can see their hands light aflame too, Arlo. They become these torches at the ends of their arms. And so too, Mateo even can see that the great hulking form of the avatar of Quatu also alights with fire. And what we can do, Jesse, is please roll me 5d6. And that's how much fire damage you're going to be doing to the avatar.
15.
All right, 15 doubles to 30 from the weakness. As this huge stinking stench of flesh and the smoke of it all fills the area. The cultists all burn. Their hands charred stumps. The great avatar of Quatu, also its flesh is singed and cooked. And Arlo, you smell the unhandedness around you, and it's the best smell in the world.
I have a feeling I also smell the searing of my own stumps.
That's fine. You're already a god. It doesn't matter.
What do it now? Am I taking fire damage from this?
Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah, the brazier. I'll say a D4 damage. So that'll be 2 points of damage. 2 points of fire damage from just hoisting the brazier.
Arlo is not dead on the brazier.
And that is Arlo's turn. The avatar of Quatu has its attention fully transfixed on you, Arlo. As it is literally this pyre, this bonfire happening in front of you. It tries to lash at you whoosh, again, Arlo. And it's going to get, has disadvantage because of the fire. It's only going to get a 10 to hit. As you see these bits of smoldering flesh fall off of it, burning away. Literally these like flesh charred bits falling to pieces. As this tentacle, I rolled a really high number for the disadvantage part of it, so it probably even came down as a big wallop, but it like disintegrated to ash before it even struck you, and just this ash and soot falls upon you, filling the air with this shadow, it seems to you, Arlo. That brings us back up to Meryl, who observes the tessellations, sees these party members burning it down, setting the Library of Alexandria ablaze, so to speak, destroying all of this perfect knowledge in the world. What heathens, what barbarians. You continue to fume at the mouth.
If only I wasn't unconscious, I would be doing so much damage. Probably not to the monster.
Roll me a d4, Meryl.
4.
So you will be catatonic for another 4 rounds. And then you'll have your composure again.
Gonna write that down and start counting that down. I was like, I is gonna be good, right? Oh, okay.
All
so
right.
yeah, more gibbering.
Mateo, that nasty carbon dioxide hits your nostrils. It burns your lungs as the smoke fills the air. But this creature is ablaze, and it screams shrieks of people that have been these. It sounds as if like the screams of people have been amalgamated together to make this unearthly, terrifying scream. What do you do, Mateo?
Mateo, hearing the people screaming, he's not going to take a swing this time, instead hesitating and just holding up his shield to protect himself, and is watching the tentacles closely for any movements they would make towards him as he takes the dodge action.
All right. Arlo, you are the great unhander. You have risen above the maggots that dwell upon this earth. Maggots in that they have hands and you do not. This great handed creature just writhes ablaze ahead of you. What do you do?
And the creature itself is on fire, right?
Yes. I will say that you notice one cultist still alive, and he's like shuffling back on his rear, trying to pat out flames. This is the one cultist has not been unhanded by your fire and still lives in this moment.
In that case, I would flick my arm back towards him with an Eldritch Blast, trying to actually knock him into the fire with the repelling blast.
All right, give me an attack roll.
That would be a natural 20.
And you do whatever you wish to this cultist. The shadows pick him up and rip him apart, pulling his legs into the fire, pulling his arms into the fire, and you set him ablaze once more. And this was the last living cultist. And so too does this dismembered cultist become this human pyre. So too does the avatar burst up into this great plume of smoke. It even chars the ceiling of the cave as it disintegrates from the bottom to the top in just these papery bits of soot and charcoal and flakes that just dissipate into the air. And there's nothing left after a minute of it just burning up and just settling this huge just like swath. It almost looks like it snowed, but of this strange white soot that blankets the entire place. As this creature is dead. There's no more sign of it beyond the soot that surrounds you. And Mateo, you're covered from head to toe in this soot. And that's where we're going to take a little bio break. Go ahead and fill up your drinks and visit the washroom and take a smoke or whatever the heck you want to do.
When I got the nat 20 for my death save, I actually called it beforehand that I would get a nat 20 on my death save, and that made me extremely happy.
I can't believe Mateo still has a D10.
It's quite a survival. I mean, he would have died in flesh, but not in spirit, I guess.
Yeah. Just like every paladin, am I right?
Yeah.
Man, it's been a long time since I've heard I use the dodge action.
I am very thankful that it's written into the adventure kit a certain way to banish the avatar, because it's not fully manifested. And that way was to dispatch all of the cultists. And I'm like, ooh, that sleep spell. Oh, technically says when they're killed, it goes away. Ah.
Sleep is not death. That is
Yeah,
true.
so I'm like, so I was thinking about that as soon as you cast sleep, I'm like, oh crap, does that just like make all of this not work? And I'm like, well, let's just see how this happens, and then it all happened the way it did, and I'm happy.
Redemption Paladin has a lot of good stuff with it.
I honestly thought this game was going to fade to black with Arlo biting the knuckles off of Cultist.
Yeah, once it was 2 of 3 party members down, like, oh, this will be over quick.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that each of you were kind
saving
of.
all of us.
I wanted to make sure that each of you kind of were engaged in that scene, not just being like, "Hey, I'm an insane lunatic. Hey, look at me, I'm an insane lunatic. Hey, I'm the only one that's saying help. Oh God." So
I couldn't do much, but that's
yeah,
the way it rolled. It's fine.
That's literally what it rolled. That you're catatonic. I'm like, well, I tried.
If it was anything but that, I probably could have done something entertaining.
All right. And so we return to this seaside cave where a bonfire lights across all of these corpses. The smell of burning flesh and soot hangs in the air. You can see the shadows dance across these conch shells on the ground. Meryl, you come to your senses, though not in the way that you once were. You're now the librarian, the architect of this ancient, amazing language. You can still do nothing but speak in it, but you're able to move around and do whatever you wish. So you can go to your character sheet, cross off languages, and you can just write down the truth, because that is the only thing you know and can speak. Arlo, you are the unhander, as your stumps have been cauterized by the brazier. The blood flow stopped, yet you still keep your apotheosis, your ascension to godliness. And Meryl, you cling to life. You can taste the sand in your mouth, the blood streaming from your nose and from your ears and from your knuckles. But all 3 of you stand there in whatever states of mind is fitting for this scene, having averted the wrath of Quatu, or at least whatever this was. The only sound you can hear is that rhythmic lapping of the waves crashing against this conch shell shore. What do you do?
Mateo lets out a deep sigh as he can feel that he's on death's door as he goes down to one knee and he looks over at the passageway that the mouse ran through and he smiles knowing that it is safe as far as he knows, or at least it's safer than it would have been here.
The three of you notice that the rain has stopped. It is still night, however, but that crashing of the rain has come to an end. The clouds seem to part, revealing a starry night. The stars in the sky form the shape of a vertically slitted eye.
Meryl will look up and say something profound that no one understands. And then turn and start walking to Mateo and just talk to him. But again, not making any sense.
Mateo, you know where the path of your mouse fled. You can notice that it is a sheer cliff face that leads from the shore up to the cliff where a part of the city of Driftchapel sits. You even see the dilapidated lighthouse in its vague shape, silhouetted only by the dim light of the stars and the moon shining on it. You can see that kind of that narrow pathway of dirt that can wind its way up to that cliff, to the above ground world. Do you follow this path?
Mateo is gonna clap Meryl on the shoulder, and he's gonna say, "Whatever you're saying, I can't understand it." And he's going to look over at Arlo. He's going to say, "It was good thinking, putting the fire on the bodies." And then he would begin to climb up.
And what of Arlo?
I think Arlo take a few moments and continue to stare off into the sky, and then turn and follow what he now believes to be his herald, taking him back to the town that he's to control.
And Meryl? Do you follow as well?
Is there anything interesting left on the beach?
There, besides the innumerable conch shells and other seashells, there are the burnt corpses of the cultists. And as well, you can see that where the sand of that kind of dune, that kind of like, what do you call it, a shoal? Kind of a shoal area full of sand where the brazier once was sitting. You actually see that the cave extends farther inwards, though it is basked in darkness. And it seems as if the natural cave wall extends into hand-worked stone that extends into the bowels and the undercroft of this place. The undercroft of Driftchapel. Something hidden beneath it.
Would that dagger that... I can't remember his name.
The Finch?
Would that
yes.
dagger? Yeah.
Yeah.
Be down there?
It lies also...
Did it look ornate at all, or...?
It was a wicked-looking, cultisty, curved dagger that is now just like covered in viscera.
I'll pick that up. And I'll call out to the others and point to the cave and see if they do anything.
Is it the cave he's pointing to? Is that the one we came from?
No, it's another branchway. I guess, yeah, it would be like this place essentially would be a T intersection where you came in from. This passageway that your herald is taking you, and then there's this like more of a complex coming out perpendicular to this that goes further inwards.
Mateo, the speaker seems to want our attention.
Mateo would turn around and look at Merrill and see that he's pointing towards the other cave that we haven't explored, and he'd walk over to where the mouth of it was, and he'd look inside with his shield up in front of him, just being careful.
And do you bring with you any kind of light source? There is a great pyre burning behind you still, but its light does not reach the depths of this passageway. So do you take a torch with you or a gaslight lantern? Because otherwise you cannot see.
Mateo would put his battle axe in his belt. He would pull a candle from his priest pack, and he would hold that up in front of him as the light source.
And your small flickering candle, every single gust of wind seems to be the thing that kills it, but it still flickers there. Almost a poetic reenactment of how Mateo's light continued to flicker despite being battered and bashed with these gusts of wind that were the great avatar of Quatu. And as you step forward with this candlelight, you can see that the cave walls turn into a hand-worked stone. One stone that seems far more ancient than Driftchapel. It is dusty. It is waterlogged, and it is also filled with that green fungus. And as you bring your light to it, they almost bloom open with a green light that washes the area with green light. And those bloom others, and it's almost a chain reaction. As you illuminate, essentially, the entire area ahead of you with this green light. And ahead of you, you see a great pillared hall. Pillared, almost styles like ancient Greek, though different enough to be, different. And it has steps leading down, and the steps leading down lead into a basin of water, now murky and locked away from the tides at this low tide time of day it is right now. And you see the glowing yellow eyes of countless of these strange fish people, though they hang upside down on the ceiling or attached to these pillars or in these bulbs on the ground, all of them encased in some kind of thick, fleshy membrane, almost like as if they were eggs or cocoons. They're all coiled up in some kind of fetal position. Some of them have their eyes open, some of them have their eyes closed, but they all seem to not even react to your presence. Dominating the center of this room is a tall statue. A statue not of the sea goddess that was in the chapel above you, but it is a stranger form still. It is a form of a great singular eye with a vertical slit, carved out of stone and marble, though weather-worn and waterlogged and molded in places where water could collect. And surrounding this singular eye is a web of tentacles, forming almost this basket for the eye. And here in front of you, you see essentially the hatchery of these creatures. You see countless, they number 50 or more here, as they twitch barely against the membranes of their cocoons. You see, the last thing that you see, are 4 stands, where 3 of them hold these dark black braziers, and a fourth one is empty. And it looks like as if the brazier that Arlo had knocked over was one of these braziers removed from its place. And that is the end of my description. You can go ahead.
And you said that they were hanging from the ceiling?
Yeah, these sacks are hanging from the ceiling, affixed to walls and pillars, on the ground, nestled in the waterlogged pond in the center of the room, all over the place. There's just countless of them.
So, how high is the ceiling?
20 feet up. Actually, well, the place descends like these staircases. So from where you're standing, the ceiling is 20, but you actually don't know how deep it is. But by the height of the statue, you can fathom maybe at its lowest, it'd be like 25. Like as
Okay.
it descends another 5.
So, Mateo would put his shield on his back, and he'd put the candle in his shield hand, and he'd pull out his battle axe, and he'd set to work getting rid of those who cannot be redeemed.
And so you notice that these flesh sacks are very, very thick, but still cuttable with your blade strike. And as you cut through them, it spills open with this brine. And what pours out in front of you is essentially a halfway point between a normal person and these strange, gibbering frog people monsters. As if like half of its body is contorted with those strange shark-like teeth, and the other half is like, Joe Schmo's face, though pockmarked and pimpled. And each time you just come through and you can dispatch, they're all unconscious, catatonic, embryonic, some state of unconscious being. You can cut them, eviscerate them one by one, the ones that are on the ground. As you break into sweat, the air is humid, it fills your lungs, and it's hard to even breathe, but still you slice and hack. The smell of flesh and weird brine and weird mucousy smells assault your nostrils as you one by one purge this place of these beings. Each time you strike one down, you're reminded of how they used to be a person. Each one is a familiar face, though some more familiar than others.
Arlo will be standing a little bit behind, just smiling, watching as his herald is dispatching the children of a false god.
Arlo, I can't reach the ones up there with this. Would you be so kind?
After a few seconds of looking, I'll start spreading shadow across and firing off, trying to knock them down and let the work be done once they hit the ground.
As you cut them open or puncture them open, these sacks on the ceiling or affixed to the walls higher up, it spills open and their bodies are mangled as they hit the stone in the ground. Some of them land in the water, cushioning their fall, and you're able to dispatch them there either through battle axe strike or eldritch blast. Hours pass, and finally the work is finished. As you stand amidst dozens of corpses, half beast, half man. It still is midnight, with the darkness of night. You don't know how many hours have passed since you first had your first drink in the tavern, in the Rivermouth Inn, but it still is pitch as night. What is Meryl doing as the two cleansers of sin wreak their way to the temple of a false god?
Meryl's going to disappear and
Where
leave.
does Meryl disappear to?
He's going to head into the town, and Let's see. Who was left that he would know? He knows someone in town through his criminal contacts, but he's not going to be able to talk to him. So he's basically going to disappear into the town, and then probably from there, just into the night.
You find the residence of this man. This man is a man named... come on, handy dice. His name is... Drumroll. His name is Caleb. Caleb Brooke. And you enter this man's residence. The door was both unlatched and ajar. You step in. You see that a gas lamp still lights and illuminates this place from within. This is a kind of a disgusting shack, like all places in Driftchapel are. As you step in, you hear the sounds of the buzzing of flies. You step in farther. You see a figure slouched against the wall. You see the wall behind him is painted, now a dark brown. In front of him lies a musket. The figure's upper half of their skull is gone. Bits of black powder lay as a dust around this figure, around Caleb Brooke.
Merrill will mutter something nonsensical. He'll pick up the musket, powder horn, extra shot, see if there's any coin on him or in the house.
And there is.
Merrill will scoop that up. And then he'll look at his arm where that word was starting to be formed. That I think it was just Q and A.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to pull out that knife and start to walk out the door and start to work the rest of it out and start carving in a T.
And you complete this lexicon. You are able to write down the true meaning behind Quatu Rises. That is just a barely tapping into what the phrase means. It is some human debasement of the phrase. Quatu Rises. That's beneath you. As you write the true meaning, continuing it all along your arm as you walk through the dank streets of Driftchapel into the night, and you're gone. We hop back to Arlo and Mateo, having finished the deed in that temple. What do you do?
Mateo is going to follow where he thinks his mouse went.
You remember that ledge with the kind of the dirty climb to it. And you climb it up as well?
I will help Arlo up at first, since it'd be kind of hard for him to climb without hands.
Arlo, actually, you'll turn and see Arlo didn't follow you. You took all the light out of the cavern, but Arlo stayed in there.
So Arlo's staying?
Yes.
So
Arlo,
then we'll go to Arlo then. We'll do Mateo's epilogue last here, because it's the not the coolest one, but the one that has like not the more story. More events could happen afterwards. Whatever. This is kind of a what do you call it? A tied up end here. So, Jesse, tell us what it's like for Arlo as his story comes to an end here.
As Mateo leaves and takes the candlelight with him, Arlo starts to be shrouded in darkness. He'll just be looking around this cavern and wondering how it's going to be set up as his new base of power to slowly spread the globe throughout this town that is now his. And he will just sit there in the darkness for probably days before leaving.
And you sit there, perhaps even just like sitting on the steps with your knees, or with the water up to your knees, just waiting, sitting, pondering, excited, just bemused at all this. Mateo, you climb that dirty climb. It's muddy, hard to keep your steps, but you follow this path up. You see the lighthouse ahead. You see from this vantage now the town of Driftchapel, though it is basked in very dim starlight and moonlight. You see the house, the taxidermist shop, its lights no longer lit. You see the observatory of the Ordist in the distance. It's broken apart. The top observatory, the telescope part of the building is caved in. But the thing that you notice most of all is you see these great beings wrapped around these buildings, blocking these alleyways. Each of one has a great, huge eye with a vertical slit and dozens of tentacles. And they're each these huge monstrosities, and you count them. One is latched to the light tower, the lighthouse, overlooking you as you climb this climb. You see another one wrapping itself around the building of the taxidermist shop. There's another sitting in the canals with its eye barely visible. Another one stands overlooking the Rivermouth Inn, now just a burnt place. You see countless of them, huge. And that's where we're ending this game of Driftchapel, with the realization that these things are everywhere. And it's only with you seeing one in your adrenaline-filled moment that you have been awakened and can see all of the other ones that were lurking through the town this whole time.
There is work to be done then.
And so Mateo the Purger steps into the streets of Driftchapel. Merrill the librarian continues his wanderings, a prophet of the truth. And Arlo, the glorious one, the unhander, meditates in his shrine. This is the story of Gloam. And this is where it ends. And thank you, everybody who watched, who had watched, or will watch, as our story of Driftchapel has concluded. And with that being said, I will click the stop broadcast button and have everyone have a great night.